is I'm going to talk to you about where to buy inexpensive yet quality diving equipment, which I didn't think was possible to buy here in the Philippines, because if you go to a dive shop, the prices are just off the chart. But I'm going to talk to you about the price of inexpensive but quality masks. This one is made by Whale, W-H-L-E, and it comes with a snorkel. I'll go over those prices in a moment with you. The second topic is going to be how to get your videos and pictures out of your iPhone. I have an iPhone 13 Pro. Thanks for stopping by, Larry. Thank you. I have some things I want to show you in about a minute, just under a minute. So I have an iPhone 13, and I have 91 videos and pictures that I could not get out of the phone from my trip to the auto parts stores in Cebu, the trip up the coast in the bus, the multiple miles of tricycle riding that I did around the Bantayan Island area to reconnoiter how much work, actual work that was being done in the province of Santa Fe, which is zero. There's zero. A gentleman put down a building that was being built by an airline pilot. That is not the investment money that I talked about as far as Bantayan. What I said was old money and new money is being pumped into Bantayan Island, but nothing from actual monetary gains from the local businesses. In other words, none of the local businesses on Bantayan Island are expanding their stores 2 and 3 times the size like we have in Bohol, or buying the property next door and building a huge building. I didn't see any of that. I saw old money. I saw investment money like Home Depot or City Hardware. But of the 10 miles or so that I drove around on a tricycle, zero building, zero new home construction, zero sari-sari stores, zero extensions on people's houses, nothing at all. And I have that all in these videos, and I'm going to explain to you how to get your videos and pictures out of your Apple iPhone, which is, it's a 16-step process. So before I do that, being that Nomad Patriot, aka John Blaze, is here, I want to show some good faith information about what I have as far as permits and plans. And of course, I will show this to you with the actual stamps. So the first thing, let me get the actual plans for John Blaze. Okay, so these are the actual plans. Now the picture that you saw as a thumbnail is this office of the building official, land use and zoning. So in this we have 7 stamps. 7 stamps. One is land use and zoning. That was checked off and signed. Line and grade, which would be, I'm doing something different with my property. I am raising the grade 30 inches from the get-go before I build anything. I'm going up 30 inches from the grade the existing coral grade. And there's a reason for that. I want to bring the hotel up higher than the Stanley House next door. My first floor will be about 33 inches higher than the Stanley House's first floor. They built their first floor at grade, or at ground level. I'm going up 33 inches from there. And then each floor will be an additional 11 inches to 13 inches higher for each floor. So after 4 floors, we have 44 inches plus 33, 77 inches. So this building will be 6 feet higher than the Stanley House for 2 reasons. One, around the perimeter of the rooms, I plan on putting a shelf around the perimeters. And the motif for the hotel will be antique tools and antiques, either it be from the Philippines or from America. So all around the perimeter of the top of the room, there'll be old tools, old kitchenware, like the original Osterizer blender, or the original Hamilton Beach blender, of which I have 3, plus the stainless steel cups that you made remember the old stainless steel cups? You put them in the Hamilton Beach blender. You went to the soda shop and they put a couple of scoops of ice cream and a scoop of root beer and some syrup. I have 3 of the Hamilton Beach blenders, and then I have a couple of Osterizer blenders, commercial grade, from going back into the years 1980, 85, the newest one. So that's the kind of stuff that will be either on a shelf or hung from a wire. So the reason I want that additional foot of height is to keep it so that the next shelf down can be used to put day stuff on for the guests. So that's land use and zoning has been signed off. Line and grade for me to go up the original 33 inches. The extra 33 inches has been signed off. Architectural has been signed off. Structural has been signed off. Sanitary, which is waste and plumbing, has been signed off. Electrical has been signed off. Fire safety has been signed off. And I'll give you the first names of each of the 7 stamps. Land use and zoning, Joy. Line and grade, Renee. Architectural, Renee. Structural, Rogel. Sanitary, Rogel. Electrical, Pedrito. Fire and safety, Othaniel. Okay, so there are 7 stamps, 7 signatures, 7 dates. That's done. Now the picture of the final hotel, as far as the plans are concerned, is a rendering. This is the rendering of what the hotel will look like when it's built. It'll be 43 inches wide, and the depth of the hotel, 43 feet, 10 inches wide, 43 feet, 10 inches wide, and the depth will be 16 feet, which gives approximately 700 feet of floor space. And that's for the second floor, less the staircase. So that's what's for sale. That is what's on the table. An investment of a certain amount of money with a 15-year lease is what's on the table. Nothing else. Nothing else. There is no agreement that I want to make for the 3rd floor or the 4th floor. or the first floor. The first floor will be strictly commercial rentals. The second floor, I will make a deal with someone if they wish to live 150 feet, 50 yards from the beach. So here is my view from the ground floor. I'm standing 30 inches above the grade that you see outside there. So from 30 inches, I have a clear view of the ocean and the white sand beach. That yellow barge that you see there is on a white sand beach, and on the far side of those boats is water ranging from a few inches at the shoreline, and if you go all the way out there to that pump boat that's behind the barge, that's 8 feet of water, and on the far side of that pump boat is a wall dive. So I am not interested in renting the first floor at all. I have plans, and I'm in negotiations with people for when the hotel gets built for two possible different stores, if I even want to go that route. So when you hear that I don't have plans or permits, this is what you should do. First of all, you should go ask for proof that I don't have plans or permits. Or you can come to me and wager me right now. Somebody, I don't care who you are. You want to see stamp number 1? You want to see stamp number 1? Land use and zoning. Put 1,000 pesos into Super Chat. I'll show you stamp number 1. If you want to see stamp number 2, you can put 2,000 pesos into Super Chat, and I will show you the inspector's name in print, the inspector's stamp, and the inspector's signature. If you want to see stamp number 3 for architectural, 3,000 pesos for the printed name, the signature, and the architectural stamp. Stamp number 4. I think you get the point. Up to 5, 6, and 7. If that's what you want to see, you pay me for the benefit of me proving to you the 7 stamps are legit, including the dates. However, the Super Chat has to be placed on the board now, or when you want to see it. I will not show you the stamps and believe that you're going to send me the Super Chat. Not that I care. So I'm talking for the benefit now of John Blaze, so that he understands that this is a done deal. The plans, the permits. Now, there are other things besides the plans and permits that had to be gotten. Now, first of all, the first thing I want to do is I want to go here. I want to show you. This folder is about, 5/8 of an inch thick. I'll show this to you in a moment. Let me get this nonsense off my screen here. I got to get over to my channel. Okay. Okay. No. Scott Del Fuego was here. Welcome, Scott. On your mark. Get ready. Get set. Fazio will soon be live streaming. You're welcome to join in. No trolling. No trolling and no hate. Enjoy the live stream. Thanks, Scott. Nomad Patriot is here. So, Nomad Patriot, I will show you everything except that name. I think I did that right. Okay, so here I have original permits, CNC permits. tax declaration of real property. The CNC is 3 pages. Thank you, Nomad Patriot. Yeah, the goop. I saw goop on Amazon last night when I was sending that information to you, Larry. They had aircraft goop, which I don't need. They had plumber's goop, which is okay. Plumber's goop is okay. And automotive goop, I think they were out of homeowner's goop. There's 3 different tubes that are 3.7 ounces in each tube. I only need 3 tubes. That should last me for the job that I'm going to be doing in a month or so. That should last me for the whole job. I just bought, not to get off the subject, but I have a motor job I'm working on. And the goop is for something else altogether. A different job, but how many of these did I buy? 1 fell. I bought 4 of these. I bought some gasket material, which is not as good as goop, but for certain things I'll be able to use the gasket material. But I cannot find goop on Lazada or Shopee, so I need the goop for another project. I'll tell you exactly what it's for. There's a water pump housing on a diesel engine I'm working on, and the water pump housing is made out of cast aluminum, and the water pump housing has worn out from the outside in, inside out on the tube that comes out of the water pump housing itself, and it's worn out back to the pump impeller. So what I had to do for that is I got a piece of, actually it's not much of a piece of metal. It's from a scaffolding. It's a thick wall scaffold pipe. And I cut 6 inches of the scaffold pipe, and the water pump, I guess you could call it a nipple. The water pump nipple that comes out of the impeller housing is 3.5 inches long. It's almost all gone. So I took a 6-inch piece of a heavy gauge, a 16 gauge pipe, and I slipped it over it. And what I'm going to do is slide the pipe over the nipple, but I'm going to put goop inside the pipe and on top of the water pump housing outflow. We call it the outflow. That will last 5 years, no problem. But I can't buy a water pump for that motor. So I need to put the goop inside there. So I'm going to use 1 tube for that job alone. And then as far as the hose that goes over the pipe, I can heat that hose up with a heat gun and slide it over the pipe. I could put a little oil on that and it'll slide over. I'm gonna peen down the front edge of the pipe, peen it down, make it round it off a little bit, and I'll be able to heat that hose up and slide it over the new pipe, because the new pipe is only, it's not even 1/8 of an inch bigger than the nipple that comes out of the impeller housing. So the hose will stretch 1/8 of an inch, no problem for that. So I see a comment here. No, not JB Well. It's goop adhesive. Yes, I sent the link in Skype. It's either household well, I could guess I could look it up. Let me take a look. I have it in an email. If you send me your email, I'll be able to send you the link. Okay, this. Okay, the goop is called. I have it here. Okay, I got it right here. The goop is called Amazing Goop Plumbing Adhesive. So the plumbing adhesive is about as good as it gets. The aircraft adhesive is more money and it's not that much better. And the household adhesive is more for stuff like leather and plastic. But the goop, the plumbing adhesive goop, is the one that I would prefer. It used to come in a purple. There's a purple goop and there's this silver goop, which is the plumbing goop. The purple or the silver would work just fine. So that's that. Now, for the purpose of Nomad Patriot, for the legal documents that go along with my my permits and plans, I'm gonna cover up a couple of names here. There's no reason to have those names on the documents. Not that, because there's so many trolls. I don't need them trolling the people whose name might appear. We have one more of those. Yeah, you guys that are out there saying that I don't have plans or permits, I don't see any wages. I don't see those 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 peso super chats going up on the board for proof. You want proof? I'll give it to you right now. Okay, so Nomad, this is mostly for you. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, well, you know, that's the thing. These trolls, they listen to an idiot who has no understanding of business in the Philippines. And then they believe what the idiot believes, and then they perpetrate or perpetuate a lie. Let me clear this up for you. I do not need to have a corporation to build a hotel. That's number one. Number two, I do not have to be married to a Filipina to build a hotel. Number two. Number three, I do not have to have Daisy sign anything in order for me to build a hotel. My name is on the permits. My name is on the plans, and my name is on the lease. I have leased a piece of land that I have all the rights to do everything that I discussed in this video. So when you listen to this fool who has, not only does he not know what the building codes are in the Philippines, he knows nothing about business in the Philippines, but you listen to this nonsense. So if you want a proof that I do or do not have plans or permits, let's put some serious money on the line and we can go from there. Because I'm willing to put whatever you can afford to lose, I'll match that in person. We go to the building department. We put the plans on the table. We put the money on the table. And I take your money once the inspectors that are on those 7 stamps agree that it is their signature and it is their okay. Don't make any mistake about it. Whatever you got, I'll match. And all I see are trolls with the lies and the deceit, the hatred, the fact that I live where I live. I don't live in a landlocked lot. Landlocked means being surrounded by weeds. I don't live where I am surrounded by weeds and mosquitoes and cobra snakes. And there are cobras in the Philippines. You can believe whatever you want. But when you hear somebody say, make a bold statement, there are no cobras on my island, that's absurd. Nobody can make a statement like that. That's not possible. If you were a DNR, fish and wildlife expert, and lived and worked on an island for 20 years, you could say, I never saw a cobra in 20 years. But you cannot say that there are no cobras on the island. So to make a bold statement that there are no cobras on my island, I can't say that. And to listen to the absurdity of someone saying that I don't live where there are cobras, or I don't live in a swamp, and then to look at the surrounding area, or what Roberto showed, it's clearly there's a blockage between a certain particular parcel of land and the beach. It's clear as day. You can't walk down a certain road without walking through 4 to 6 inches of water and 2 or 3 inches of mud. You can't walk through the forest or the jungle on either side of the road. That is a perfect habitat to grow 1 billion mosquitoes a year in that one puddle. But moving past that, I don't live in a landlocked area. My area, if you had to make, seriously speaking to the trolls out there, if you had to make a decision to live, no matter what the property looks like or doesn't look like, beautiful or not beautiful, that's your opinion. But no matter what the property looks like, if you had a choice to live there or to be able to build where I am, where would you choose? So let's just go over this one step at a time. There's a parcel of property on a particular island that in and of itself, according to Roberto's videos, is not unlikable. The property itself. Michael Dowdy, the beach, any day. I'm going to give you guys the option in a moment. So the property itself is, if you could pick that property up and put it somewhere, but you can't. So that means it's still 2,400 feet from the nearest beach. So that's 2,400 feet, and I live 150 feet from the beach. There's the beach right there. On the far side of that pickup truck, that's where 160 feet of white sand beach starts. Okay, now, am I landlocked? No. That tree that's over there is on a property that's about ready to be developed into 134 rooms are going next door to my house. 134 rooms will be going next door to my house on this side, and on the far side of my house to the right, to the what would be the east side of the house, 1,800 rooms are being developed. Down the beach, not far away, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday that walked down there. I asked them what they were building the second crane down the beach, because I was actually ready to go there this morning. I have the drone out. I have the drone and I have the batteries charged up to go fly, but it's raining out. So to the east side of where I live, they're going to put 1,800 rooms on 18 hectares of land. There's going to be condominiums and hotel rooms, and that's 5 years down the line. But to the left, they already did the demolition on the property just before the lockdown, so they're ready to go. They're ready to go. They're just waiting. I saw the owners, Chinese, 2 Chinese investors. I have their name and phone number written down. They're ready to go. They're just waiting on. They modified something with the hotel. I don't know that end of their business. I don't care about that end of their business. I only just talk to them to say hello and to introduce myself as their neighbor. So, in regards to where I live, it takes 45 seconds, and I'm on a white sand beach. Clear water coming from the west side of the island. The ocean current flows from west to east, and it's a clear, constant flow of ocean water. So even the fact that the Bellevue is 1,200 feet away, and even that's the only hotel with any kind of gray water, that was cured 2 years ago. They are not allowed to pump gray water into the bay anymore. So the reef remained live. Now, as far as where I live, as compared to where somebody that keeps critiquing my property lives, any normal person that enjoys island life would choose my location. Now, they wouldn't want to live in my shack, that's for sure. There's no doubt about that. They would prefer to live. So what I'm waiting on is actually not any of your business, but we are going to build a hotel. Whether John Blaze or Larry Evans or somebody else gets involved in this, you have to remember 3 things. The lockdown just stopped all construction, right? Well, I was in the beginning of getting ready to go. If you remember, I just bought the cement mixer, and I was in the process of buying the rebar bender, and I bought tying tools. I bought the rebar cutter. If you remember how much equipment I bought just at the lockdown and even after the lockdown, but the lockdown stopped all construction in the Philippines. 7 months ago, when I wanted to go buy rebar to build a couple of footings, you couldn't even get rebar. There was no rebar available because China was not bringing enough steel into the country of the Philippines to buy rebar. There was none. You go to the warehouse, there was no rebar. It was empty. Now they have rebar. But that's all besides the point. As far as where I live per se, I don't live where there's 6, 8, 10, 12 feet of weeds surrounding my house. And I don't mean, see, this is what keeps getting mixed up. There are no actual weeds 5 feet away from the house that we're talking about. But 20 feet in back of the house, there are 6 to 10 foot weeds. And then 50 feet in front of the house, there are 6 to 12 foot weeds. According to Roberto's videos, that's what I see. So, where would you prefer to live? What do you think grows in 10 foot of weeds? What do you think lives in a puddle that looks to be 8 or 10 feet wide and 30 feet long and 6 inches deep with a canopy over the puddle? 1 billion mosquitoes in a year? Easy. You could get 1 billion mosquitoes out of that puddle. And there look to be many more. And don't forget, I was on the island of BANTAYAN. Most of the side roads are not finished roads. So where would you prefer to live? A half a mile from a beach that does not have deep water for another 1,000 feet, which I went over in another video? Or would you prefer to live 150 feet from a white sand beach and deep water 500 feet from my house? It's up to you. So when I keep hearing, he lives in a shack, I would live in this shack forever. I made it clear as day. Would I live in a jungle environment on Bantayan Island if you gave me a new house, the electric, the water, the internet, and food, and you paid all my bills and gave me $1,000 a month? Would I live on the island of Bantayan Island? The answer is no, I wouldn't live there. Because there is nothing to do there. I was there. There's nothing to do on Bantayan Island. I don't need to go to a beautiful restaurant every day. I'm fat enough. And after that, the only bunker boat that I could come up with on a YouTube search was 16,400 pesos, which comes out to 277 US dollars per person for an 8-hour or 9-hour trip. No mask, no snorkel, no food is included for $288 per person for the day. Bunker boats right behind my house are $60. You don't get food, you don't get a mask, you don't get a snorkel, but you can rent a mask and snorkel for 250 pesos. But it's only $60 for 6 hours. Okay, so it's $10 an hour here to rent a bunker boat to go to Balikasog Island, which is one of the most beautiful reefs in the Philippines, in the Visayas for sure. So at Balikasog Island, it's a protected habitat. No fishing for 500 feet from the shoreline. Not in the day, not at night. No fishing, no lobstering, no turtle hunting, because there's hundreds of turtles that you'll see swim by if you go scuba diving there, and no taking of shellfish. So it's a natural habitat, Balikasog Island. That way, it's not 3 miles from here. It's not that far. So for $60, $10 an hour, you get to go out to the most beautiful reef in the Visayas, all natural, and plus one more stop called Virgin Island. It's a white sand beach with a sandbar that goes out from the beach about 1,000 feet. It's pristine. It's all natural. There's no businesses on the island. On Balikasog Island, if you want to stay overnight, you could stay at a small hatch, a thatched hatch. No aircon, just fans. Scott is putting up links for Balikasog Island. Probably, thank you, Scott. There is no place like that in the Bantayan area that I could find on the internet. Now, if there is, I couldn't find it. So would I live on Bantayan Island? You couldn't pay me to live on Bantayan Island. But I keep hearing that I live in a nowhere desolate area of Bohol. Yeah, I live in a province. But I am not surrounded by 12-foot of weeds. I am not surrounded by 6 inches of puddles. I am not surrounded by jungle. All that you see in front of me is all open. Yeah, we'll do it again in case you can't see. That's open over there. To the right of that fence line is a lot that's 50 feet wide and 130 feet deep. To the left over there, where that tree is, there's going to be an Olympic-sized swimming pool, pretty much, for the hotel that's going in next door. So where I live, the view is not going to change, except it's going to open up. So what would you prefer? When I gotta hear this every day. He lives in a shack. I'd rather live in a shack than live for free, and you gave me $1,000 a month. I wouldn't live on Bantayan Island. What doesn't anybody understand? To live inside a jungle, a forest or a jungle, is not my concept of island life. I lived since I was 5 years old. 5 years old. I lived in a residence that I could see the water from the house or apartment I lived in since I was 5 years old. I have never lived inland except when I had property in Michigan. I lived in a freaking on a preserve, a mountain preserve. I lived on next to state land, 55,000 acres of nothing but forest and hunting. But I didn't like it there. I hated it there. There's nothing to do there. Here, now I have the drone. I could go fly the drone. Daisy does her Zumba 3 times a week down next to the Bellevue. There's a Zumba class 3 times a week. I have a bunker boat right behind my house. My landlord owns a boat. He'll take me out anytime I want. And the reason I haven't been out on the water is because of this mask, where I haven't been out on the water to make a video for you people, is to see this mask. This mask is 42 years old, and it collapsed. I'm going to get to the comments in a minute. It collapsed inward, and this glass fell out of the mask like that, but it collapsed inward, not outward, and it flooded. It flooded my view. I was diving a couple of weeks ago, albeit with my personal gear, but I was diving, and the mask collapsed inward like this, inside. It went into the mask, and the mask flooded. I don't panic, but I had to take the mask off my head, and then clear my mask. And then after I cleared it, then I got my, I was on the bottom at the time. I was negative buoyant on that dive. I had just dumped out my BC. And I had to, okay, Jack, check I saw your message yesterday. 2 people passed away in your family. I saw that. Thanks for sending me a message. Okay, so let me get to my comments. So now what I did was, that mask is 42 years old. That was a good mask. That's a Sisi mask, I think. A Cressy. It's got like a Z at the top. I think that stands for Cressy. Could stand for something else. But it was a good investment. Plus, it's cracked here. See, it cracked there? So it leaks right above my eyes. And also at the bottom, I had to cut some of this out to make it last. So I bought a new mask, which is something I wanted to talk about. I bought a silicone rubber mask, which 42 years ago, this mask would have cost over $100. And I bought this from Lazada. It's called a whale. Whale. W-H-L-E. A whale mask. It was 870 pesos for the mask. and it came with a snorkel. And this silicone rubber seems to be the same quality as a mask that you paid $100 for 40 years ago. Because now they have the silicone rubber process down to a science. Back then, a silicone rubber mask was $100. You couldn't buy one for less than $100. Now they sell them for $16 on Lazada. I think I paid $18 for the mask and the snorkel, and it's made by a company called here it is, Well. So if you want inexpensive diving equipment, Lazada has this mask. I don't see that there's going to be a problem with that. So let me get to the comments. Thanks for... Okay. Simulacron put Simulacron put a link up there. Let's see what we have from Simulacron's link. Thanks, Sim, for stopping by. Goop. Sim came up with a better Goop, all-purpose. Yeah, that's more options there. Thanks, Sim. Yeah, this Goop used to just be one kind of product, but now it's multiple products. Thank you, Sim. Arthur Yellow. Arthur Yellow. Oh, my God. Let's get some yellow paint in honor of Arthur Yellow. You know what I'm going to do? You know what I just realized? This computer that I have here. Look at this. This computer is not painted yellow. It's got numbers and letters, but it's not painted yellow. But we can tell you what we could do here. You know what's going to happen. Arthur Yellow, I'm going to give the computer a little spritz. A little spritz. In honor of Arthur Yellow, we're going to start to paint my computer yellow. I'll take it out on a sunny day and finish it. Yellow. Let's get this, let's just paint this computer a little bit. A little bit. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Let's give it a little... Let's see, Z, Faz. Okay, that's F, A, Z. Faz. This way, if I go to the airport, they know that we're not fooling around. That's Faz. That's the Faz computer. And we'll paint Batman. Batman sent me a pair of headgear here that you put on your head. Batman sent this to me. Let me turn it around that way so I don't paint the switch. Let's clear the snout out of there. Okay. Yeah, that's much better. More yellow, the better. You know that yellow is God's color, right? There's no doubt about that. Yellow is God's color. So, the entities that want to protect my information, come on, baby. Come on. Yellow is God's color. Everybody knows this. Plus, it's a sky color. Plus, it's the color that God chose to paint the sun. And when you say sun, son of God, sun, yellow, Jesus, you could refer to Jesus as being yellow because he's the son of God. He's God's yellow son. I mean, this, everybody knows this. This is common sense. Okay, so let's... Now that we brightened up the computer a little bit. Oh, you know what I didn't brighten up? I didn't brighten up my new glasses. Oh, did anybody notice that I have a new pair of glasses and I reinforced them before they could break with toothpicks and baking soda. Put baking soda inside here and then you put this the stuff on here. Look at that. 6 toothpicks plus inside toothpicks and outside toothpicks. It makes that frame solid like a rock, baby. And I have some 502 cyanide cyanide. This stuff, in case you guys are going out and buying super glue, and it's 50 pesos, $1 for like a half ounce, you want to go to Ace Hardware Store, Ace. See, I'm the only person in all of the Philippine genre that can tell you where to buy tools and how to buy stuff at a discount. There is nobody else. All the other people are blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. So that latent prints, that's what they use this for. Actually, that is what they use it for. The crime labs use this to take fingerprints off of things. But that's exactly right. But Scott would know that. Most other people wouldn't know it, but I know it because I just some stupid piece of information I remembered from watching television. So CSI, I think I watched it on. Anyway, this stuff, I don't know how many ounces it is. Could be 3.5 or 4 ounces. This is $4. But it's 15 times as much cyanide, whatever it is. 15 times the amount, and it doesn't get hard in the container. Now, this is 3 months old, and it's still fluid in the container. And I don't have the best seal in the world on it, but it doesn't dry up like that other stuff. Now, I use a lot of this stuff on the glasses, on my repairs. I used it on a cabot that I bought that cracked. I don't know how it cracked, but it held together for about 2 months now. So this is my glasses. I have toothpicks here, and inside the white that you see is, you put baking soda. You put baking soda, you fill up the gaps with baking soda, and you put that crinolytic acid on there, right here, like that. That white stuff in there, and it hardens up like a rock. So the baking soda takes up, it's almost like caulking, but once you put that crinolytic acid on there, it hardens like a rock. Like a rock. Like a rock. Not the rock of Bantayan Island. No, we're not talking about that kind of a talcum powder rock of Bantayan Island. We're not talking about that. So, I'm putting the plans. Fazio was putting the plans right out there in living color. Now, I know that most people believe I have the plans. Now, since I had the plans, I did all the excavations for all the footings except for 1.5 footings. I have a lot of the building supplies in preparation, but then the lockdown came, and then we had another little setback that's just about over with now, and we'll go back to work. And then it will be pretty much, you'll start to see some more results. Now, people that don't know me, I don't want to hear your voice. People that don't know me, I don't want to see your comments. People I don't know, I prefer that you just watch and learn. I prefer it that way. Unless you have something to say that's positive, or you have Super Chat where you'd like to pay for my mask, my new mask and snorkel, $18, then I will entertain reading your comment. But for the people whom I don't know, I would prefer you don't comment. It's not complicated. I don't know who you are, and I don't choose to spend 2 hours answering comments from people whom I don't know. Whom is the right word? He has a problem with everything, Jack. So, Jack, actually, I feel your pain, Jack. When you told me that you had 2 people die in your family in 1 week, that's hard, man. That's hard. So I understand that you don't you're not answering the phone. Dairy Queen, you have to admit, Fazio backs his own ideas properly. The proper approved plans are right there, no argument. I got to get a pot to make a lot. I got a pot. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. See, Nomad Patriot, I don't want any money from Nomad Patriot at all. We already have a good conversation behind us. Nomad Patriot offered to bring anything I need from the Philippines. And I was honest with Nomad Patriot. He remembers from 2 years ago, I needed Loctite. You cannot buy. I want you people to understand something. I do a lot of motor work. You cannot buy Loctite in the Philippines. You can't buy it on Lazada. You can't buy it on Shopee. You can't buy it in any automotive store, and no one will order it for you as of 2 years ago when I tried to buy it. Nomad Patriot remembered for 2 years I needed Loctite and called me up and said, can I bring you red Loctite? There's red Loctite, there's yellow Loctite, there's blue Loctite. I found the biggest tube that's made of red Loctite about 6 months ago. I found it in a box that I had brought from New York City back in 2019. Did I say, now that 2-ounce tube is $50, and that's from Napa Auto Supply. I think I paid $36 for that 5 years. 5 years ago? I haven't been. Yeah, 6 years ago when I was in Napa with Carl Vella. 5 years ago, I paid $36 for 2 ounces of the. I think it's red. I have blue also. But did I say to Nomad Patriot, yeah, buy me a tube of Loctite? You know, it comes in a little vial like this. Did I say no? I said I found 2 ounces. 2 ounces of Loctite is enough for me to rebuild 3 engines. So I don't need Loctite. But I did say I could use diethylene ether, which can't buy in. You cannot buy starting fluid in the Philippines. You can't buy it from Shopee. You can't buy it from Lazada. You can't buy it from an automotive store. You can't buy ether at all. Not diethylene ether, not petroleum ether. You cannot buy it. It's not, they don't sell it. What they tell you to use to start your engine is brake fluid. Now, brake fluid has ether in it, but it's not ether. It's something different. And when you want to clean something and you need diethylene ether and you use brake fluid, it leaves a residue on that product. So you have to clean it with the brake fluid, and then you have to clean the brake fluid off with soap and water and then dry that. Ether, you spray it, you're good to go. You can paint it. You can put it together. There's no oil, latent oil on there. So I asked Nomad if he can get it, bring me 2 cans of diethylene ether, 3 tubes of gook, plumber, automotive, or aircraft goop, or not household goop. Household goop is not good. And that was my next comment is I don't think you can put fluids in your suitcase. So I don't think you're going to be able to do that. Now, I'm not sure. You would have to call up about that. So ether would be a pretty volatile thing to put in you. But the corrosion block It's an aerosol. You know what? I think you're right. I think you're right. You're not allowed to put aerosols. Jack Thompson says Nomad Patriot is a good dude. I've known him from another site. He's actually a good man. Well, I actually met Larry or Nomad Patriot 5 years ago. I actually met him. Yeah, he is a good dude. So you're right, Nomad. Now that I'm thinking about it, no aerosols at all. So the only thing that you could get me is 3.7 ounce tubes of goop. That's it. I don't need 5 tubes. I that will last me. I have a one would be for the water pump. That's it, and then I'll have 1.5 to 2 tubes left over. If I don't, even if I open up a second tube, I'm good with that. Then thanks. Yeah, no aerosols. You're right about that. Sorry, I wasn't thinking. I'm not sure that I don't know if you could put an aerosol in a box in a suitcase. I don't know. If you want to check, you could check. If not, it's not a big deal. Thank you. Frank's Mike Dowdy. Frank's not landlocked. He's surrounded by a swamp. I agree. I agree, Mike Dowdy. I agree. It's well, it's not. You know, landlocked is an interesting word. He is surrounded by what I would consider a swamp. I mean, or a jungle. So what real difference is there between a swamp and a jungle? At some point, they're the same thing. Now, maybe people don't know what a jungle is, or a forest is, or a swamp. Okay, so I'll define all three. A jungle is trees, big trees. And those trees grow up next to one another, and at the top of the tree is like an umbrella of the tree. It's called a canopy. So the 90% of the live growth on a jungle tree is the top part of the leaves, because the leaves don't grow down at the bottom because there's not enough sun to give life to branches. There's branches, but there's not as many leaves on the lower branches. So a forest has a canopy, and light can come down through the leaves, and some sunlight hits the ground. That's a forest. A jungle is 100% canopy. No light hits the ground. So in the daytime, it could be dark in a jungle. It could be a little light, but no light hits the ground per se compared to a forest. And a swamp, well, I mean, somebody want to look up to define what a swamp is? A swamp is a place where water stays stagnant. That's a swamp. A puddle could be a swamp. An area of low-lying, uncultivated ground where water collects. A bog or a marsh. That's a swamp. Okay, I know these definitions because I am a licensed excavation contractor. This is all part of my expertise. So if I say something is a swamp, by definition, I know that my defining of a swamp is a swamp. Now, a puddle, and there were multiple puddles in Roberto's videos. You got to understand something. Roberto, going fishing, whatever he goes under now, he put out a video showing you these puddles. But the owner of a particular property that lived not so far away also agreed that the puddle was not traversable on either side of the puddle, and that was problematic to traverse through the puddle. And the reason you cannot go past that puddle, according to Roberto's videos and the owner of a particular property that lives nearby, is that on either side of the road is a dense tree line where you cannot walk through it. So the road has a depression, and the road is 4 to 6 inches of water up to the tree line. Now, I hate to bust your bubble, but that is stagnant water. Listen, you people have no idea. Go look up Michael Fazio's Real Job. Go look it up on Google. You're going to see all the excavation jobs, gas stations, clearing 7-acre lots, building seawalls. Before I got permits to do all that work, I had to submit plans, my definition, my defining of what the property was. So if I was going to fill up 24 inches of landfill on a lot, I had to make a video, take pictures, multiple pictures of each tree, and then show them what vegetation was on the lot. Then, after I did that, a biologist, Nika, her name was Nika would come out, or Jack, or Tom. 3 people did biology for the Florida Keys. Okay, so Nika, Jack, or Tom would come out and tag the species of tree. Now, I could take any tree and all trees down, but if I took down a buttonwood tree, I had to plant 3 more somewhere else. Or the owner of the property had to plant 3 more buttonwood trees on state land. But I know what a swamp is, and that area, the road is swamp. The road with the puddle, that's a swamp. Make no mistake about it, that puddle is a lifelong entity. It may dry up during the dry season, but all swamps can dry up during the dry season. But during the wet season and the rainy season, a swamp is a swamp is a swamp. So the perimeter around there, I did not walk in the perimeter, but I can tell you that the forest-like and or jungle-like area around there, being that it's a flat grade, has standing, what they call standing water on either side of the road throughout whatever Roberto's videos showed. Whatever Roberto showed in his video, I can look at that and know for a fact that on either side of the road there is what's called standing water. Now, standing water doesn't have to be 2 feet of water. It could be 1 inch of water that just stays there for weeks at a time after a rain. That by itself can cause 100 million mosquitoes per acre per week. 100 million mosquitoes per acre per week. One, you see this cup here? Let me educate you people. You see the top of this godlike paint, this yellow paint, Arthur yellow paint. See this top? You fill this top up with rainwater and then put a couple of leaves in there and some pollen. Just like that, just this cap. And once it gets going, once a mosquito lays about 100 eggs. You get a couple of mosquitoes, 4, 5, 6 mosquitoes, lay larvae in this cap. This cap can produce easily 1,000 mosquitoes per week forever, as long as there's water in the cap. Now, the interesting thing about mosquitoes, and I'm going to educate you some more. The interesting thing about mosquitoes is this cap can have 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 mosquito larvae in the cap. Now, let's say rainy season is over and the cap dries out. The mosquito larvae go to the side of the cap and they attach themselves on the cap. They just stick to the cap like a little piece of glue. And they can live in the hot summer sun for 6 months. When it rains again, the mosquito larvae activates and can come back to life. So this little cap can produce 1,000 mosquitoes a week, no problem, 1,000. But that puddle could produce 1 billion mosquitoes a year, depending on conditions. Let's say I'm wrong. Let's say it's only 200 million mosquitoes a year. I'm right about that. So when you listen to an idiot describing what a swamp is, and then you listen to my actual explanation of what a swamp is, I am right and the trolls are wrong about that. Make no mistake about it. I have the license to prove I know what a swamp is because I was a licensed excavation contractor in the Florida Keys for 13 years. I only gave up my license because I moved away. But before that, I was a licensed excavation contractor in New York City for 11 years. So I have 24 years of licensed excavation licensing under my belt. I know what a swamp is. I know what produces mosquitoes, and I also know how long the mosquito larvae can live outside of water. That area that Roberto showed in Roberto's home videos or whatever they were, that area is swamp. That puddle is a swamp. In and of itself, it's a swamp. So to say I don't live in a swamp, that's true. No one lives in that swamp, but they are surrounded by swamp, or swamps, plural. Make no mistake about that. If you were to have an actual Nika, Tom, or Jack, the people in the Florida Keys, if they walked in that area and I said, Jack, Tommy, Nika, I want to fill in this area, they would designate that entire area in Roberto's videos as swampland, or the majority of it as a swamp. The only way around that, to say it's not a swamp, is to put 18 inches of crushed rock and fill, raise up the grade of the land, and then around that area that you filled in will be swamp, but that pad that you put down will not be swampland. But you'd need, there's a field outside a house where there was a cow in the field. In order to get that land designated non-swamp, you'd need 500 18-yard trucks to put down a 15 or 16 inch base. in that whole field. I'm not real sure because he should have stopped and videotaped around the perimeter so I could get a better idea. But 500 truckloads of crushed rock and stone at 18,000 pesos per truck, $400 a truck. You'd need $20,000 worth of landfill to bring into that field to eliminate the swamp aspect of that field. That's my opinion. Depends on if there's water, standing water there at low tide or when it rains. See, Roberto I don't know, Roberto should have stopped by and had lunch in that area and did a proper reconnoitering of the area. But he didn't. He just, apparently he was in a hurry. But Roberto should have stopped by. Well, then again, there were the threats that if someone stopped by unannounced, Roberto probably did the right thing. So, but that area. Now, how do I know it's a swamp? Well, I lived just a few, maybe 1,200 feet away from that area. I walked up and down many of the streets. I lived at Rick's Paradise Hotel for a few days only. But every street that Daisy and I walked around, and we did a lot of walking. We walked from Rick's Paradise Hotel. We walked to the ruins. That was a mile. We walked that mile. We walked on the main road between Rick's and the ruins, but on both sides of the main road were swampland for the most part. The road was elevated, like I said, 14, 18 inches, and on both sides of the road was standing water. That's a swamp. So when you hear I don't live in a swamp, I, Michael Fazio, do not live in a swamp. What Roberto's home video showed us, that was a swamp. There's no doubt about it. Now, if I get I'll probably never get the opportunity to go back there, but I could prove it if I went back there. I'd go back during the rainy season, and I would, with a pair of knee-high boots, and I could show you standing water in that whole entire part of the island. Forget about that one particular swamp area. That's different than just forget about any one area. I'll walk up and down that road from Rick's Paradise Resort to the ruins. I'll show you water, standing water on both sides of the road all the way for the whole mile that we walked. I'll walk down any cross street between Santa Fe Road and the road that the Ocean Road that's in front of Rick's. You walk down any strap or any cross street, it's all jungle, not much forest. There's no old tree growth there. I don't know what happened to the trees on that island, but there's just not a lot. There's no like pine forests or mahogany trees there at all. I didn't see a single mahogany tree. I saw a couple of mango trees that make the mangoes. I saw a couple of those right where I lived near Rick's, right across the street. There were a few of those, right by Marie's Hotel, I think it was. But as far as forests are concerned, that island was deforested a long time ago. There's no forests there at all. There's just jungle and swamp. So if you want to live there, it's a good place for newlyweds and nearly dead retirees because it's an inexpensive place to buy a property. And in Florida, Vero Beach, Vero, Vero Beach. I lived on 5th Avenue and 19th Street, I think it was. It's They're all one-level bungalows, and it was home to the nearly dead and newlywed. That is what Bantayan Island reminded me of. The newlywed and nearly dead can go there to get a starter house or a house that's affordable for them to live in during their retirement. But that's all. That's it. There's no new construction on Bantayan Island outside of the town area. Anybody that wants to disagree with me, go there and do what I'm going to do this week. I'd have done it, I would have did it Monday, but I didn't get a front seat in the jeepney. I'm going to go from my house to the city, to the end of Panglao, 20 kilometers. And I'm going to count 1001, there's a new construction house right there. And I'm going to start again, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1000. That guy's extending his sari store. 1001, 1002. There's new cement block on the side of that house. New construction is new construction. On Bantayan, there's none of that. You can't drive down the block, the side roads, even the main road. Any new construction you see is big business, old money, not houses. No, the restaurant on the corner where Rick's is, big fishery, it's all bamboo and thatch. There's no, except for the refrigerator area, I'm pretty sure that's probably concrete, but there's no new construction anywhere. The hotels, yes. Investment for hotels, yes. Investment in the town area, old money or new money is coming in, knowing that 5 years from now, Bantayan is going to be, if there's no more lockdowns, a nice place to live. But not now. Not for me. Not for you. If you want to live near a beach, there's no place that you can get to in Bantayan that's not 500 or 1,000 feet away from deep water. What's the point? If you have to walk 1,000 feet through 6 inches of mud to get to where you could put a mask and snorkel on, no, it's not going to happen. A child, a young man, 15, 16 years old, with a couple of friends that are full of energy can walk 1,000 feet to the deep water. And then what? They still got to walk back 1,000 feet through 6 inches of mud. Bantayan is not. It's got nice white sand beaches, but it's not someplace, if you're a scuba diver or a snorkeler, it's not someplace you'd want to live. I don't care what the price is. It doesn't matter that the price is a good price to live in this place. It makes no difference if you can't get to the ocean and go in the ocean. And where Roberto's home videos showed you, it was a swamp. From one side of the wetlands to the other was a swamp. And you couldn't walk around it on either side. And if you wanted to walk through it, you'd have to have 6-inch boots, 12-inch boots. I don't know. I didn't see it myself personally. But from what I saw, could be 3 or 4 inches of mud and 4 or 5 inches of water. I don't know. I only saw a video of that area. I didn't walk through the puddle. I did not, as Bill Clinton would say, I did not have sexual relations with that puddle. So, there you go. Let me go back to the comments. The Bill Clinton defense would be, I did not have sexual relations with that puddle. Weeds, skeeters, cobras, says Arthur Yellow, and poisonous spiders and scorpions. Well, scorpions. Scorpions like a little bit of a different environment. They prefer jungle rather than swamp. They don't live in water. They live in a drier climate. Now, in the Florida Keys, we had scorpions, but not in a swamp per se. There's no scorpions, but in a jungle, there are scorpions. Yes. Michael Dowdy says beach any day. Somebody lost the ability to comment on my page. Don't troll my page. Don't troll it. This is a troll-free zone. Arthur Yellow, Bantayan can't be developed much. Now, I didn't know that. It's a federal preserve reservation, and the aquifer is limited to how much water can be supplied. I didn't know that. We're going to have to do a whole... Roberto, wherefore art thou? The whole mainland is a swamp from the coast. There's an article that explains it on Manga Bay called On a Philippines Island, a tricky balancing act between development and water. Wow. Manga Bay. Manga Bay. What a name, Manga Bay. It suits that place. I wouldn't go back to Bantayan Island. I gotta tell you. That place has nice white sand beaches. It's perfect for somebody from Cebu or Manila, but to get me to go back to Bantayan Island, I don't know. It's an interesting article, says Scott Del Fuego. Okay, so the news from mangabay.com. Let's open that link up. Let me read to see if there's actual proof that all the nonsense I just talked about is true. Manga Bay. Whoa, look at this. Let's turn this around. Let's get you guys involved here, for those of you who can read. Manga Bay. On a Philippine island, a tricky balancing act between water and development. This is what I'm talking about. This beautiful white sand beach here, but it goes out 500 feet to where there's deep water, 1,000 feet in most places. It's a beautiful place. The beaches are beautiful, but you can't swim or snorkel or scuba dive there. Okay, so let's read a little bit. Philippines authorities are preparing... Philippine authorities are preparing to lift the protected wilderness area status of Bantayan Island Group in central Philippines. The status imposed in 1981, which is 41 years ago, limits the construction of buildings and infrastructure on the main island of Bantayan and 22 nearby islets, and prohibits residents from owning titles to the land. See, I don't know any of that. Roberto, get your stuff together. Next time you make a video, I want to see this information in the description box. A long-running campaign by residents and business owners to have protected status lifted to allow for the development has culminated with authorities agreeing to open up the coastal areas for development while retaining a core protected area inland of 540 hectares. While most residents have welcomed the move, some say the area under protection should be expanded to safeguard the island's group sole source of fresh water, the rain-fed aquifer on Bantayan, from contamination, saltwater intrusion, and blockage. Whoa, here we go, rain. When rain falls on Bantayan Island, the supply of fresh water rises. If the rains fail, it becomes scarcer. The 120,000 residents who wrote this nonsense, and 22 nearby islets in Cebu province in the central Philippines all get their fresh water from an aquifer that's replenished by rainfall. So what that means is, as an excavation contractor, I'll tell you exactly what that means. It means they don't want a lot of new construction to be built there. It's not complicated. They don't want giant houses like I have on my block. I have a house on my block the house is close to an acre of land. One house. They don't want that. And the guy's got a pool and a tennis court, and they don't want any of that kind of stuff on Bantayan. Demand for the precious resource in this expanse of clear blue marine waters has surged with the pandemic. As residents look to keep infection at bay through frequent hand washing and cleaning. I don't know what any of that means. There has been significant increase in water consumption these last few months. So they don't want any construction going on their island. I'm not going to read this whole thing. Arthur Yellow, somebody put the link up there. Scott put the link up there. You guys want to read that, you can do that. Michael Dowdy says mosquitoes, spiders, bugs, and mosquitoes. Infrastructure isn't building a house. It's roads, internet, water, waste management, communications, and so on. I've tried to explain it in multiple videos as well, Michael Daddy. The infrastructure means the core structure of what makes the island manageable. Roads, internet, which is non-existent still, water supply, and communications and electric, which is all at a minimum on Bantayan. The housing industry itself is, I would say it's at a dead standstill from what I saw when I was there. Now, if there are houses being built, I suggest that somebody on the island go down the road like I'm going to do in Bohol and show you 500 new construction projects over the course of 10 miles. Scott says, if you're going to operate heavy equipment, you need to know what area you'll be operating it in. This was all part of my testing. You know, you people, you still don't get it. You still don't get it. As a licensed excavation contractor, you have to take tests. And for each stamp that I had, you had to take a test and pass it. And you had to have a certain amount of hours in that field of endeavor. Like, I owned a crane and barge company in New York City, licensed marine excavation. So when I moved to the Philippines, all I did was show them my licensing from New York State for 11 years that I was an excavation contractor, and I took I bought the books for the excavation and landscaping first. Those were my first two tests. Landscaping, I passed that day, and excavation, I failed. I think I got like a 68, passing was 70, but I didn't buy those books. I thought I knew enough about excavation to pass the excavation license, but apparently there were test questions. I don't remember. This goes back to the year 2000. That was 22 years ago. I failed it. So I bought the two books about that thick, about 1.25 inches thick, on excavation. Even though I was an excavation contractor, I was a marine excavation contractor. Excavation, my license covered land and marine, but I didn't cover Florida excavation rules. So I bought the books, and then I went back I think you had to wait 3 weeks, and I went back 3 weeks later and I passed. And I had my excavation license and my landscaping license. From there, I worked for Mitchell Septic Tank for about 2 years as an employee, but I did mostly the installations for the achromatic systems. Anything that had to do with aeration and septic tanks, anything that had to do with putting the pumps in for the air, enstrained air in the septic tanks, and I operated a backhoe for him when he needed me to operate a backhoe or a trenching machine. So after that, Mitchell signed off on my septic tank stamp. So I had a septic tank stamp, a landscaping stamp, which would allow me to clear a forest, and an excavation license, which would allow me to put in septic tanks or dig below 3 feet. See, you can dig down 24 inches for an electric line or a pipe. You don't need an excavation license for that. But when you start digging trenches for septic tanks to houses and or drain fields, you need a license for that. So I had all my licenses. So in order to get the licenses, I had to take the tests, plus you learn on the job. So when you get some clown out there walking around in the field saying, this isn't a swamp, yes, it is. By definition, it's a swamp. So don't listen to that subterfuge nonsense that you see on YouTube. You listen to Michael Fazio, who had the licenses to do excavation, tree service, and septic tanks. I did. So when you got a guy that never had a license in his life, aside from maybe an automobile driver's license, and you have somebody that has 26 years in the field of excavation, marine construction, who are you going to listen to? Who's your daddy? I'm your daddy. I'm your daddy. Prove me wrong. Go to BANTAYAN Island and go and take a walk and look at where Roberto's home videos came from, and you'll see that that entire area is depressed land-wise and can be considered, in the rainy season, swampland. Don't blame me because Roberto took a video of a swamp. Don't do that. It wasn't me. I did not have sexual relations with that puddle. You can't take timber from a swamp. Probably not. Probably not. A lot of Georgia is a swamp where there's tremendous amounts of timber that they don't forest. They don't remove. So I think Jack is right. Swamp People was a good show. Imagine living in a swamp and not knowing that you lived in a swamp. That's the funny part. Living in a swamp and not knowing that you live in a swamp. Try not to Google Michael Fazio. Make sure you have cowboy boots. If you live in a swamp, cowboy boots are good for snakes. That's what they wear them for. I could tell you a story about a snake. I'm riding Buckaroo. We call him Buckaroo Bonsai. He's 17 hands. He was an English, he was a Western horse. He was trained for the San Diego Police Department, and the year is 1970. I'm 15 years old. I'm living in California for the summer. And Buckaroo had a little stable, a 3-sided stable outside my friend Tommy's house. His father was a retired state trooper in New York City. And he bought a horse from my friend and his 2 sisters when they moved to Vista, California. So horses are supposed to be ridden on a regular basis. You just have a horse standing around doing nothing is not good for the horse. So when I got there, freaking horse, I said, can I ride the horse? And they said, sure, as long as you clean them up at the end of the day and you feed them. Because now I'm doing the job that they've been doing and they're done with the horse. A horse, you could just ride a horse so much and you get tired of riding the horse. So anyway, from the horse, his name was Buck. He had a saddle with a horn on it, which made him a Western horse. The horn where you put the rope on there. And Buck, he was a trained academy horse for the San Diego Police Department, but he didn't like snakes. So on the way to Thibodeau's Pond was at the top of a mountain. The whole entire top of the mountain, I have video of this, I have pictures of this somewhere. The whole top of the mountain was just cut off at some depth. Maybe they cut 1/3 of the top of the mountain off. And in California, the rock is DG, decomposed granite. So what they did was, there's no rain in Southern California. It might rain 1 inch a year, 2 inches a year. But what they did was they took huge pumps into aquifers and they cut the top of the mountain off, and then they made a bowl in the top of the mountain. Now this is big. It's a couple of 100 feet across the top of the pond. And the pond was round. It was the top of the mountain, and that was Thibodeau's Pond. It was really a reservoir for water. But there was a rattlesnake just before you got to the top of the mountain. There was a rattlesnake. So, but before the top of the mountain, there was a flat. The whole thing was a mountain range from Tom's house at 1050 Golden Trail, Vista, California, to the top of Thibodeau's Pond. Might have been 2 miles. And it was flat where you could run the horse, run Buck flat out. Well, one day, I'm running Buck hard. I'm running him hard. Buckaroo and me, we went to Camp Pendleton. We went to Torrey Beach. We went to Black's Beach, which was 17 miles away. But locally, you could run Buck anywhere you wanted. There were no fences. And one day, Buck saw a rattlesnake. I didn't see him. Buck knew. It was Buck. Buck was running. I was sitting down. I don't know what the hell I was looking at. And Buck stopped. Like in the movies, he put his 4 hoofs down, dead stop, and just skidded. And I went over the top of the horse. And when I'm on the ground looking up, and I'm looking at a rattlesnake, a big one, maybe 6 feet long, and he's only about 2 or 3 feet away from me. And I'm going, what the hell just happened? So I rolled away from the rattlesnake, and then I got back up on Buck. He would not go back on that path. He would not go back. I had to go down, backtrack, and then we had to go up the side of the mountain. He would not go on that path. He knew there was a rattlesnake there. So horses. So I had a horse, and the horse, you got to ride a horse every day, otherwise the horse loses all its muscles and everything. So, but I lived in a pretty cool place. Let's get back to this. Scott says, on the map of current protected area, it is still a huge part of Bantayan Island. They will never be able to make or read real infrastructure, no land for it. Not going to get valuable when you can't get groceries. That's true. So, yeah, that was another thing I noticed. Now, Daisy and I we did not have, at Rick's Paradise Resort, we're going to give him an A+ for the resort area, in case Rick is going to watch this video. He gets an A+. Beautiful, beautiful rental cottages, clean pillows, clean sheets, clean towels, clean bathroom. He gets an A+, and he gets an A++ for the view. However, if you want to go swimming, you can't go swimming from that beach unless you swim out 1,000 feet to deep water. And at low tide, you have to walk 1,000 feet through mud. But Rick's place, the view is spectacular. The vista, the view. That's funny, I lived in Vista, California, and the 1050 Golden Trail, Vista, California. I also lived at 555 North Avenue, Vista, California. It's right next to the right next to the Santa Fe Railroad, actually. I think it was the Santa Fe Railroad. I lived about 200 feet away from the railroad tracks. Santa Fe Railroad, I think that's what it was. 555, now it's some sort of a warehouse. Where I lived was on a mountain. They cut that mountain out, and they put a warehouse there. But the railroad is still there. 555 North Avenue, Vista, California. So, and Thibodeau's Pond, the water supplied water for, I don't know how many acres, more acres than you could. The horse would run through the tomato path, through a road, through a tomato farm for a mile. It seemed like a mile. There was like a mile square of tomatoes. And that water from Thibodeau's Pond was the water for the pond, for the tomatoes. So they pumped it out of the aquifers when it was available, and then they used a gravity feed system to pump it onto the tomato plants. It worked. But now, when I went back there in 1992, Tom's mom and dad passed away. They had 6 acres of land. They had the J&A, Jack and Alpha Ranch, J&A Jade Ranch. J&A Jade Ranch was at 1050 Golden Trail. I don't know what's that. They don't have a Jade Ranch there anymore. But Mrs. Austin had a huge, like an acre of jade. She was one of the biggest jade providers in Southern California. J&A Jade Ranch. Gene and Al Austin. Gene and Al is what it stood for. And I lived on that property, but now Tom and Margie and Sandy passed away, but eventually sold parcels on the side of the mountain. But they kept the top parcel where the parents' house was, and then eventually Margie married Tom Holland, who's the property right above them. Tom was like 7/8 up the mountain, and Tom Holland's house was at the top of the mountain. That had a beautiful view. But yeah, I lived in some pretty places out there, and I had a horse. That was pretty cool to have a horse. And I had the horse from like June to September of 1970. That was pretty cool. And you could, at that time, you could go from Vista, California to Carlsbad Beach. You could go to Torrey Beach if you really wanted to hike for 2 days on a horse, and all the way to the beach. Watermelons and tomatoes. The farmers gave us all we wanted to eat for ourselves, or for the horses, and hay. They would give us free hay. I don't remember ever paying for hay, but they'd give us hay for the horses if we slept there at night. It was pretty cool. And so I know about horses. I know more about horses than most people. And Buck was a good horse, but he didn't like snakes. He didn't like snakes at all. So, and I don't know how they sense it, but he knew. I guess he could smell it. I don't know. He stopped long before the snake, 20 feet before the snake. I just rolled right up on the snake over the horse's head. And Mr. Austin, he laughed. He got a kick out of that. He goes, yeah, Buck don't like snakes. Thanks. All right, then. 2 hours. That's enough of that. So what I got going here today, actually, it stopped raining. It stopped. Well, look, I can look outside my window and on the ground, and there's no puddles, no swamps. I live in a swamp-free zone. Oh, you know what I wanted to talk about swamps? I had one more thing. There was a television program when that man in Bantayan Island says, I don't live in a swamp. Whatever you say. Okay, but what it reminds me of, Lex, L-E-X, there was this strange sci-fi TV series called Lex. And that was the one with Dylan Hunt, I think his name was, the guy who played Hercules. He's a good actor. And I'm pretty sure that was the one, yeah. But in the television program, was it Lex? I think it was Lex. With the bug, the big spaceship, that was a bug. Anybody know Lex, the bug spaceship? In that movie, in that series, there was a head, just a talking robot head. And the head was in love with a very pretty woman. I don't remember her name. But in the movie, there was also these giant brains on top of huge pedestals. Now, I'm not real sure, but they said in order to show homage to the giant brains, you had to say, I worship his shadow. and you had to, I don't, it was such a long time ago, and I really didn't watch much TV, but I remember the few shows I watched, and I worship his shadow. And it was basically you worship the brains that are sitting on the giant pedestals. That reminds me of the man that lives in Bantayan, where I worship the Swamp Master. I worship the Swamp Master. Because no matter whether there is a swamp, whether there isn't a swamp, I believe there's a swamp. He has to live there, not me. So if it is a swamp, and I'm right that it's a swamp, I worship the Swamp Master, because you got to give somebody credit to live in a swamp, considering all the setbacks that take place in a swamp. Number one, mosquitoes, malaria, snakes. And don't tell me there are no snakes or poisonous snakes or cobras on Bantayan Island, unless you're a biologist on the island for 20 years and you know everything about the island. Don't tell me that. So I worship the Swamp Master. I worship the Swamp Master because you have to be a special type of individual to live in a jungle or a swamp. You have to understand that you're never going to see the beach from your front door. Every time it rains, you have to traverse large bodies of water, swamps, and the mosquitoes are constant, except for the middle of the day. But gnats, mosquitoes, flies, vermin of all sorts, rats and mice, are going to be plentiful in a jungle or a swamp. So I worship the Swamp Master in that his ability to live in a swamp far supersedes that of my ability to live in a place like that where I can't see the ocean. So for that, take the hat off. Take the hat off. A tip of the cap to the Swamp Master. A tip of the cap. Dude, you need to look up the definition of the word swamp, and you need to decide whether it is you live in a swamp or not, and just get over it. Get over it. By definition, the area immediately surrounding your domicile is a swamp. What more could I say? I think I covered that well. And Roberto, this is all your fault. The next time you do a drive-by, try to get more details on the videos, please. Thank you very much. Yeah, during a rainy season, Scott is probably right. I think that's why they have a wall up like that 18-inch wall around the perimeter, but it doesn't stop the water because it would come in from the gate. I don't know. I was there and it rained. I was there during Typhoon Fury or Furo, F-U-R-O or F-U-R-U. And the puddles that Daisy and I stopped us from walking up and down the blocks. You weren't able to walk up and down the block. You couldn't get past. First of all, I had a pair of brand new sneakers on. I wasn't walking through 6 inches of mud. And second of all, I'm not walking through 6 inches of mud for anything or anybody with a backpack on with my my drone and my camera and my phone. I'm not going to be walking through mud. I'm not. If I had hiking boots on and that was where what we were doing was hiking, well, then I'll walk through the mud. But I had on sneakers. I wasn't walking through mosquito infested, larvae infested, vermin infested, bacteria infested puddles. Just wasn't going to do that. It wasn't worth walking through the puddles to get to where the other side of the route. It wasn't worth it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. I worship the Swamp Master. The Swamp Master. Don't listen to people that don't have licenses explain to you what a swamp is. I know swamps. I know how to deforest. I know how to reclaim the land. I know how to excavate the land. I know how to elevate the land in steps, S-T-E-P-S. If you wanted to clear out that swamp, theoretically, you'd have to scratch 18 inches of soil and bog off the swampy area outside the residence, push it over to the side, drop 8 inches of crushed coral. Then you could put a few inches of bog and swampland back on top of that. Then you do another 8-inch lift, L-I-F-T, or step, S-T-E-P, and then throw a couple of more inches of swamp soil back on there. But you'd have to do it in steps. If you just put 18 inches of material on top of the swamp, depending on the substructure, if it was bog, you'd still have bog underneath it. But in order to build on top of it, you'd have to remove the bog, swamp, soft material, clay, and then you'd have to build it up in steps or what they call lifts. I know excavation. He does not know excavation. Don't listen to that nonsense. I don't live in a swamp. Okay, you don't live in a swamp. You live in a swamp, dude. You live in a swamp. It's up to you. What you want to believe is what you're going to eventually believe. I'm Pink Permy from Michael Fazio and Daisy May in the Philippines, baby. Bye-bye for now. Oh, I have three new playlists. Real men doing real work in the Philippines. And, of course, real men do deep sea 100 plus feet, 33-meter dives into Japanese war wrecks in the Philippines. I think I'll post one of those videos tomorrow. Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai. That was the name of another guy in that, one of those Lex, Kai, Dylan Hunt. Gotta go. Like my new glasses? They're nice, right? I'm Pink Permy from the Philippines, baby. Bye-bye for now. I worship the Swamp Master. I worship the Swamp Master. And you should too.